Hey everyone, this is Mike and today I'm going to be doing another video on Destiny 2. Now it's been a very long time since I've made a video on the channel about Destiny, especially one where I'm actually talking, because I think the last video I uploaded was one of the first runs of me and my raid teams through the Deepstone Crypt, but I didn't really talk in that video at all. So I thought, it's a new year, 2021, Destiny is still the #1 shooter game that I have been playing for ever since Destiny 2 came out, like 3.5 years ago at this point almost. And I basically just wanted to kind of talk about it, why I still really enjoy Destiny 2. Some of my friends are new coming into the game as well, and maybe with this video I can convince you to try Destiny 2 as well, because there is a free version of the game. It does not give you access to everything, but you do have access to quite a bit. That should at least give you an idea of whether or not you enjoy the game, and if you say after playing that free version, okay, Destiny 2 is something for me, then you can always invest the money, buy the expansion Beyond Light, for example, which is the last one that came out a few months ago. Now, when I talk about Destiny 2, I don't necessarily like to call it just a shooter game, because whilst yes, Destiny 2 is a shooter, you shoot with different guns, snipers, hand cannons, submachine guns, whatever it might be. There's even swords, which are also weapons in the game, which are very powerful on certain encounters. Basically, Destiny is much more than just a shooter game. Yes, you have all of the gunplay, and the gunplay does feel really good, I must admit. Which is also one of the main reasons why I like Destiny 2 a lot. But beside that gunplay, there is also a lot of other things that the game has to offer. It's not just a story experience and then some endgame PvP that you are going to be spending most of your time doing, like in something like, for example, a Call of Duty. Like, you play through the story once, maybe twice if you really liked it, and then the majority of my time when I played Call of Duty a few years ago would be to just spend my time playing PvP for until the next year when the new Call of Duty comes out. But in Destiny 2 there is so much more to offer than just a story experience and PvP endgame. There is also a PvE endgame, because Destiny 2 is not only a shooter, it is also an MMORPG, and the best way that I would describe Destiny 2 is as an MMORPG FPS, because that is exactly what Destiny 2 is. You have strikes, which you can compare to dungeons from a more traditional MMO like World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy XIV. There are actual dungeons as well, which you can kind of look at as mini raids, because they only require half of the players that you would need for a normal raid, which, by the way, there are also normal raids inside of Destiny 2, which is what you're actually seeing gameplay of in the background right now, which is from the Deepstone Crypt raid, which is the latest raid that came out a few months ago. So you have these strikes, you have these dungeons, you have the normal raids, then of course you do have the PvP endgame with the different PvP game modes, some of which do not care about your item level, some of which do care about your item level. You have very casual playlists, you have a more competitive playlist as well, you even have a playlist that only comes up on the weekend where you try to go flawless, and the more wins that you can rack up in a row, the better your rewards are going to be at the end as well. So there is definitely a wide variety of content available that wouldn't necessarily be only for a normal shooter game, but going more towards that of an MMORPG. You have the PvE aspect, you have the PvP aspect, we even have Gambit, which is a mixture of the two, where you're playing both PvE and PvP at the same time. I'm not gonna explain how that all works together, that's something that you can find out if you do decide to try the game out yourself. But outside of just the content that is available for you to do, PvE, PvP, the gunplay and such, there is also an actual RPG aspect when it comes down to crafting yourself a build, because Destiny 2 is not just a shooter game, it's also an RPG in the sense that you play a specific class. Each of the 3 different classes, we have the Hunter, Warlock, as well as the Titan, they also have access to 4 different elemental subclasses, one for each element. We have Solar, Arc, and Void, which are the 3 base subclasses that were in the game when Destiny 2 came out, and then with Beyond Light we got access to a 4th new elemental subclass called Stasis, which functions a little bit differently. And with all of these different subclasses, we again have different subclass trees. So for that, I'm going to be switching over to my monitor real quick. I'm currently equipped with Stasis. As you can see, Stasis looks kind of like this, where you have a lot more customization, like for example, what grenade do I want to use is like this you can choose on every single class. You have different aspects, these aspects will be added upon as well as we get more expansions in the future, and then we also have fragments that again interact with all of your different abilities in a different way, also boosting your specific stats, for example like +10 strength. This one subtracts from my stats but gives me a different powerful ability instead in that passive that it gives you. But when we look at our normal subclasses, for example, we have our normal 3 over here. it looks a little bit like this, where we have 3 different subclass trees that we can choose from, and each of these interacts differently with your abilities. For example, if I go top 3 Night Stalker, then whenever I use my dodge, I will become invisible. If I were to, for example, go with the bottom 3 Night Stalker instead, then I would go invisible when I throw my smoke bomb on the floor. So this is much more team oriented, where, for example, if I want my team to become invisible, I just throw the smoke bomb on the floor. The entire team that runs through that smoke becomes invisible. This is much more if I just want to be invisible myself. This is also easier access because it is tied to my dodge and I don't need to throw a grenade on the floor or my melee ability on the floor and then get hit by that. But then again, we also have the middle tree, which changes my super from a crowd controlling super to a roaming super, where I'm going to be having these spectral blades and then be able to run around, rack up a lot of kills that way for either ad clear or, for example, in PvP, I am going to be an invisible assassin basically. And this continues on in the other subclass trees as well, where you have 3 trees over here with the Arc Strider, and then again we have 3 different trees over here with the Gunslinger, and then again the middle tree gives you access to a different super, where we have a golden gun in top and bottom tree, but then in the middle tree we get access to throwing knives instead. And when it comes down to all of these different subclass trees, of course you have your own specific passives as well that are attached to each of these subclass trees, but you also interact with them by choosing a specific exotic armor piece. So for example, if I am just going for some general purpose play, I could equip something like the Wormhusk Crown. This is a very safe exotic to use that is very general purpose, because every time I use my dodge ability on my hunter, I'm going to get a small percentage of health back. If I'm already at full HP, I get a small shield. Very useful to get yourself out of sticky situations. Your dodge also makes you harder to hit if we're talking about PvP, for example. So this is a very good general purpose exotic to use. But if I, for example, want to use this together with a specific super to achieve a specific goal that I want to get inside of a raiding scenario, for example, then I can do some other cool combinations. Like, for example, I can choose the bottom 3 Gunslinger, because this will allow my super, the golden gun, to fire 3 shots, and I can also do precision damage with them. Precision damage is kind of like a headshot basically, allowing you to deal bonus damage, so very good for doing boss damage. Now if I want to amplify this boss damage even more, I can equip something like, for example, the Celestial Nighthawk, because this turns my golden gun, that normally has 3 bullets to fire, into a single round super that makes it so that I can only shoot 1 shot, but that 1 shot is going to deal much higher damage. So instead of doing my damage over 3 shots, I can now do it in 1, so basically upping my DPS quite a bit. If, for example, I don't want to use my Gunslinger because there's no boss, for example, in the encounter, I can go middle tree to get myself access to Blade Barrage, which is more of a ad clearing super, and then I can, for example, switch this away and then equip the Shards of Galanor instead, and these will make it so that whenever I get hits and kills with my Blade Barrage super, I will be refunded super energy, meaning that I can use my super much more often, meaning I get better access to ad clear. If, say for example, I don't want to go ad clear but I want to go ad control instead, I can do something like this, where I go bottom 3. This one also gives me access to a lot more crowd control, because, for example, I can shoot my super multiple times. I also get access to lockdown, meaning that my grenades last twice as long, so I can, for example, pair it together with Vortex Grenade, which creates a little bubble that stays on the field for a while, or I can create a Void Wall Grenade that I can throw in front of like a spawn for the enemies, for example, that stays there for quite a while. With this specific passive, it stays there twice as long. And then I can, for example, pair that up with the Orpheus Rigs, which makes it so that every time my tether super tethers to a new enemy, I gain super energy back again as well, meaning that I can use my super much more often. So you can do builds like this. You can of course also go into different aspects of your build, like for example, I can really double down on the throwing knives. For example, with this one, my melee ability turns into a throwing knife. I can use an exotic that gives me 2 charges of this throwing knife, for example. So there's really a lot of things that you can do with your build. And it doesn't only have to do with which subclass tree that you decide to choose and which armor pieces that you end up choosing with that, because not only are your exotics important, you can see that we also have stats on all of these weapons. And this will also impact all of your things. For example, mobility will decrease my dodge cooldown for my hunter specifically, and then resilience and recovery are how many hits can I take and how quickly am I gonna start regenerating my HP, and then also how quick does that health regenerate. But then we also have grenade cooldown, we have super cooldown, we also have melee cooldown. So depending on what you are focusing on in your build, you might want to start looking for armor that is specific with these stats that will amplify that build even more. And not only stats and exotic armor pieces and that kind of stuff, but you can also start looking towards weapons. Weapons themselves can just be very general purpose, like for example this is a pretty general purpose weapon. This one is all about the weapon itself being incredibly strong. For example, I have Rampage. This makes it so that every time I get a kill, I gain a stacking damage buff, goes up to 3 times. For example, Kill Clip, when I reload after getting a kill, I again gain a damage buff on my weapon. And then Drop Mag allows me to reload my weapon real quick, but any leftover ammunition in the magazine will be wasted. But this all works together really well. I get Drop Mag, which allows me to reload really quickly, which is good because I want to reload because of Kill Clip. And then every time I get a kill, I get a damage stacking buff. So this gun is all about making itself really strong. If I were to compare this to something else, like for example this gun is not about itself being strong, but it is about working together with the rest of your build, where for example Demolitionist is going to give me grenade energy every time I get a kill with my sidearm. So this is more going towards a subclass build. So for example, with the previous one that I showed, the Kindled Orchid, this one is all about me just using my gun a lot to kill all of the ads. Whereas something like this one over here, the Breach Light, this one is all about generating grenade energy for me and mainly relying on my grenade and a combination of this sidearm to do the ad clearing for me. So it's all about how do you want to play and what are you wanting from your playstyle as well. And we can take it a step further than that as well, where we for example have the same weapon that can roll with different perks. For example, the sniper over here. This is one of my favorite snipers right now to use in PvE, so when I'm doing raids or something like that, this is definitely high on my list to use because it is very user friendly. I have a reload perk, Reconstruction. This means that I don't have to reload my sniper myself, so I can just use it, shoot 2 bullets or something to take care of a strong enemy, and I can just put it away again, go back to my submachine gun or something that I was using to fight normal ads, and the weapon will reload itself. But in combination with Recombination, this will allow the 1 or 2 shots that I do with my snipers to be much stronger, because when I'm getting kills with, for example, my submachine gun, then this will also boost the damage that I'm going to be doing with my sniper because of this perk right here. So instead of switching to my sniper needing 2 shots to kill this high value target, I can now switch to my sniper and only need 1 shot before I need to stow it away, for example. But this is only good in PvE. Inside of PvP, this isn't really all that useful. Yeah, my sniper already does very high damage and I can already one-shot people in PvP, so I don't really need that. Instead, I'm gonna go towards perks that look a little bit like this. For example, in PvP, you are going to be sliding around corners quite a bit, and this makes it so that I reload part of my gun as well as boost the handling and stability of the gun whenever I do slide. And then Snapshot Sights allows me to aim down sight a whole lot faster as well, boosting the handling even more. And then this creates it so that I can slide around the corner, scope in real quickly with my sniper, take out that enemy, and then just like dodge roll out of the way or something like that. Whereas with this sniper, I wouldn't really be able to do that because I don't have the handling quickness, the stability and such to pull such a quick play off, which I can do with the other sniper. So whenever you get new weapons, it could still be exciting to get the weapon that you already have, but that has different stat rolls. For example, here with my machine gun as well, this one I like to use in Crucible because this one is all about boosting the stability of the weapon itself through stats like dynamic sway reduction, moving target. Then I've also added up a backup mag to this one, increasing my magazine size, so when I do get heavy ammo inside of PvP, I'm gonna get more bullets for my gun. But then, for example, if I were to look at this one is all about ad clear. I again have that Rampage perk, I have the auto loading perk which will reload up to twice of the magazine size that this gun can go, and then I've also added a minor spec, which means that I will deal bonus damage to your general ads that you can see in a raid encounter. So this is basically your ad clearing machine, whereas this other one, this one is all about being good inside of PvP. So when it comes down to all of the things that you want to do in the game, you can theory craft your builds, changing your subclass depending on what you are looking for, pairing it together with a useful exotic, trying to look for armor pieces that fit this playstyle as well. Do you want to spam your grenades quite a lot? Okay, we're gonna look for armor that has a lot of discipline on it. Maybe we have an exotic that also boosts the effectiveness of our grenades as well, or maybe changes the way that we interact with them a little bit as well. And then maybe we can even pair a weapon together with that has Demolitionist that gives us more grenade recharge. Or maybe I want to do it the other way around and I want to make it so that my guns are the strongest that they can be. see if there is maybe an exotic that boosts the handling or the usage of some of these weapons as well, and then find a gun that has the stats to be a very strong gun like that Kindled Orchid that I showed you before. So that is all about the gunplay in that case. But that is the beauty about Destiny 2. You play the game in the way that you choose to play the game. What subclass do you want to play? What exotics are you gonna pair together with that? What weapons do you like to use? And try to go for specific perk rolls that work together with your ideal fantasy of how you would like to play the game. And then again, different guns, different perk rolls, different build philosophies are going to be really useful inside PvE, whereas others might be very strong inside PvP, and then you kind of pick whichever you prefer the most and build your character towards that. And everything is also very interchangeable. You saw me switch between these exotics, between these subclasses by just a click of a button, and as long as you just have the different armor pieces ready, you can just switch them out as much as you want, depending on what build you want to do at what specific encounter or what specific content that you are going to be doing. So because of all of that, I have a very hard time calling Destiny just a shooter game. To me, it is really an MMORPG FPS, because it embraces all of the different tropes that are attached to these different genres. You can play with other players, you have dungeons, you have raids, you have endgame PvP, you have a mixture of both inside of Gambit. It is still an RPG because you can build your character, you have all of these different stats that you have to take into consideration as well when you want to go for a very specific crafted build. And it's still a shooter because it has a lot of different guns. The guns feel very different as well, and they are all very unique with their own perk rolls, with their own stat rolls as well, the way that they look, the way that they feel, and makes Destiny a very unique game. Yes, Destiny 2 has a fair amount of flaws. The game definitely is not perfect, but there is no real game out there at the moment that gives a similar experience to Destiny 2. So even though Destiny has a lot of flaws and it's definitely not perfect, I still keep coming back to it because there's no other game out there that is able to give me a similar or even a better experience that Destiny 2 at the moment is providing for me. So again, if this video was able to convince you to try out Destiny 2, there is a free version available for the game. You can just download it on Steam, play it, or even on the Xbox, PlayStation. It's available on pretty much everything at this point. You can play it for free, and if you do like it, you can always pick up the expansion and get access to even more content than what is already in the game. Anyways, that's gonna do it for me. I want to thank you all for watching. I want to thank my Patreons for supporting me, and I'll see you in the next one.